Hello and welcome to episode 194 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On the show today, I'll be joined by Steven from the YouTube channel, A Life in the Parks. Steven's channel started off focusing on home videos his family took when visiting the Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando Resort theme parks from England throughout the years. These videos are such a cool time capsule of the parks at different times. Well, Steven's been branching out in his content because he continues to take more and more cruises, including cruises on Disney Cruise Line, and he has plenty of videos on that now as well. I'm looking forward to hearing some more details on a different type of vacation. Before we get started, I wanted to send out a huge thank you to all of you who are listening on a weekly basis. 2 weeks ago, we came within just a few views of hitting 12,000 on YouTube with our 192nd episode. And last week, we exceeded 5,000 views in the first week of episode 193. Those 12,000 views were the most we have ever gotten for an episode on YouTube, and 5,000 was our third most popular episode on YouTube. These shows are also airing on other formats, so we're getting even more ears on us than just that. As we approach our 200th episode next month, we have been doing a lot of looking back at everything we've accomplished to this point. We never thought we would ever be this popular, and it is such a huge honor. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Make sure to watch our videos, share our content, like videos and podcasts, and of course, drop positive comments on everything. I just very quickly wanted to touch on one other topic before we get started, and that is that, yes, last week we did experience Hurricane Milton in the Florida area. My family was lucky enough that we were able to evacuate. We headed to Savannah, Georgia for 3 nights. Not only did we completely and totally avoid the storm while we were there, but I was able to make a video of content from downtown Savannah, Georgia, so make sure to check out that video. But we were really at our luckiest when we returned home to find out that we had power, even though most people in the area did not have power, and we even had internet. So for all intents and purposes, we really didn't miss much. Then we had to throw away some of the food in our refrigerator. And of course, the evacuation process was not that pleasant. It took us 11 hours to get to Savannah, Georgia, and it took us 9 hours to get home, even when both of those rides were supposed to be about 5.5 hours. So we were definitely stalled in a lot of evacuation traffic. Still, I know that a lot of people were asking and were making sure that we were safe, so I did just want to throw that out there that yes, we were safe, and we definitely appreciate all of the well wishes. Let's get right to it today. Thanks for joining us again, Steven.
Hey, Rick, good to be back.
So first things first, I want to just go back to what we talked about the last time you were on the show, because it was around this time of year and people are starting to think about the holidays, starting to think about those jolly festivities. And the original purpose of your YouTube channel, A Life in the Parks, was to document how the Orlando theme parks, other theme parks used to look in the past, because you had one of those big old cameras that you would throw on your shoulder and you would document all of these former times in the parks. And I think it gets really special around the holidays when you can document some of the things they used to do to celebrate at Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando Resort. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of those things?
There's 2 sets of videos that really work for me that people come back to year after year. One of which are my Halloween Horror Nights videos. So I've got some of the parades. I've got 4 of those Bill and Ted shows, which are probably far too risque for 2024 audience, but 20 years ago, people used to love that stuff. And the other thing is the Osborne lights at MGM Studios, which was always a favourite.
Absolutely. People love to go back and look at those Osborne family lights. Now, of course, with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, they decided they didn't have the room for those, but a lot of nostalgia for checking out those lights. Now, in recent years, you have, I wouldn't say changed the total purpose of your channel, but you have certainly expanded to start covering cruises. And I want to know, first of all, how did that decision come about to start incorporating cruises into your channel, to start hitting more cruises? And then we'll talk, obviously, about cruising, because that's not something we talk about on this channel a lot, because we have a lot of theme park people here.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that when we had all the shutdown and all this, and we couldn't go to America, so I couldn't go to, sort of Orlando or California or whatever, but we could cruise. So one of the first things we did when things got back going again in August 2021 is that Disney Cruise Line would have Disney Magic at Sea. Now, the cruise wouldn't go anywhere. You'd basically leave from a port in Southampton in southern England. The ship would then sort of bob around in the English Channel for 3-4 days, and then it would go back and you'd get off. So it was a cruise to nowhere, but with Disney and obviously the entertainment and all the things that come with Disney Cruise Line. And it was a release for people that wanted to have that Disney sort of experience but couldn't go into America. And obviously since then so much has changed there, and it's a nice way of having your Disney fix without having to spend so much money flying over to the States. And obviously, as you probably know, things have got very, very expensive out there. And I've got friends now going to Orlando who don't even go to the parks anymore. They're just going to go to Orlando. It's changed so much in, let's say, a few years.
So those original, I know that COVID is still happening, so it's hard to say, during COVID, but those original early days of the pandemic when you were in these cruises to get that little bit of Disney, what were they like? What was the atmosphere? And, were there a lot of precautions? Like, we look back now and we think about all the precautions in the parks, but I can imagine it's even harder on a cruise ship where you have so many people in such a tight quarters.
Oh, the original cruises, you have to do pass like a lateral flow test, and so you're there, you've spent all your money on your cruise, and then 48 hours before, you've then got to pay somebody else to do a test on you to show that you don't have COVID. Things like that were really sort of, it was concerning. And then what happened is when people got on the ship, they were so relieved. And even though you had to wear masks and bits and pieces like that, at certain times, I think it was just that sense of almost normality, even though it wasn't normal now looking back on it, but it was a touch of normality after so long of being in lockdowns and all the heavy restrictions that we definitely had here in the UK.
So we're going to specifically talk about Disney Cruise Line a little later in the episode. I want to start with, what are some of your favorite cruise lines with which you have sailed already that aren't Disney, but you still think put on a really good experience, make you feel really comfortable?
I would say number one would be NCL. I think that they have the service and the food. None of them are going to be as good as Disney, but they're right up there. But of course, then they don't have the Disney price, which is one of the big things about cruising with sort of Disney in comparison to other cruise lines. But I think that they do an excellent job. I think the other one is Princess Cruise Line. Again, a bit more in the premium sector. They also do great job, great shows, and great service. And I think that is when I go cruising, what I'm looking for the most is that, I'm on holiday, I want to relax, and that, sometimes, you can go on a cruise and it's oversold, there's too many people, you can't get to the bars, the food service is slow, and you think, why am I doing this? So service is very much the driver for me.
And I'm assuming when you say NCL, you mean Norwegian Cruise Line?
Norwegian, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of really good things about them. So Where were some of the places that you visited on a Norwegian Cruise Line cruise? Because being from England, you're going to be hitting a lot of different places, I'm sure, than when people cruise leaving from Florida.
I think basically two of my Norwegian cruises have been out of Miami, so we've gone down to
Well, there you
the
go.
Caribbean. Exactly. So yeah, they've got their own private island down in Belize. Obviously, private island is very, very nice indeed. Again, you can sort of you get that touch of the Caribbean. You can get into the sea. Nice and relaxed there. On Princess, we went up to Norway and to Denmark. So different places. Now, I would say to people who live in Florida or live in somewhere that's really hot, there's when we went up to say Norway and you do the fjords, it is just these all hills, these mountains. You get so much different types of weather. It can be cold, it can be hot, it can be rainy, it can be sunny. In a period of a day, you have so many different seasons up there. But I think that that would be definitely somewhere to go and experience. For people in the States, I think they'd really enjoy it.
When you take these cruises, is the location a big deal for you? Is it something where you're trying to find a bunch of different locations to see, kind of like a bucket list? Or are you just as likely to take a cruise to a private island as you are to see the fjords, because there are different types of vacations, and depending on what you're looking for, you might want maybe more relaxing than sightseeing? Or do you really always find you want to go somewhere different?
That's a very good point, because when you say cruising, is that it is so diverse in where you'll go on a cruise and you'll have, say, Disney Cruise Line. Disney Cruise Line, the ship is the destination. The other bits and pieces are, nobody cares. The amount of people that don't get off, it's bizarre. But they're there because they want to have that Disney experience. Whereas for me, if I'm looking for something to relax, I'd probably have more of a land holiday. I'm looking for new ports, new places to see. In Europe, obviously, I'm looking for places that have got a lot of history, because that's something that I'm very interested in. It's a mixture of so many different things.
Then let's just get to it and start talking about these Disney Cruise Line cruises, because I think the difference between even Norwegian Cruise Line or Princess Cruise Lines, which you would say are the top of the non-Disney cruise lines, there's a whole nother step up when it comes to Disney Cruise Line. Now, there's also a step up in price, so you do have to take that into consideration. But what are some of the things that you have noticed that make a Disney Cruise Line cruise worth the difference in price?
Number one, I think that it is the whole dining experience. The food is fantastic. And unlike other cruise lines, if you want to have 5 entrees, they'll bring you 5 entrees. They're just going to keep bringing you food. So, but this whole Disney Cruise Line has rotational dining. So there'll be like 3 dining rooms, and you will move each evening to a different dining room, and you will move with your servers, so they get to know you, your likes and dislikes over the course of your cruise. And they are so different. Like, you've got Animator's Palette, which is basically Turtle Talk with Crush. So that sort of you'll get that type of experience. And another one was Rapunzel's Royal Table, where they have the whole show from Rapunzel being laid out for you in between each of your courses. Now, this is like a dinner show rather than just having a bite to eat in a main dining room, which is on the vast majority of other cruise lines.
And you say when you go on a DCL cruise that the boat itself, the ship itself, is the destination. Where did you go on your most recent DCL cruise?
We went to Zeebrugge in Belgium. Now, that is, I think it's the second largest. We went to Zeebrugge in Belgium, which is mainly a shipping port. And from there, you go into Bruges, or you can go into Ghent. Disney provide a free shuttle to Blankenberg. From there, you can get the train into Belgium. But we just walked around the town. It's a seaside town. It's got Belgium's only pier. So we went onto the pier. and it was really nice. Sat down, had a couple of beers. The food's good. Yeah, just somewhat different. We'd not been there before. We've done Bruges on a previous cruise, so yeah. And I didn't want to be too far away from the ship because, obviously, as I say, you don't want to be spending too long away from the ship because you paid the money for that Disney experience rather than the port experience, which you could have on a cruise line and pay half the price.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, Disney Cruise Line focuses a lot on families. And do you find that you're overrun with kids, or do you find that they give everybody from, ages 2 to 92, they have entertainment for everybody so that even the parents of kids on the cruise line can get away from their kids not get away. I don't want to sound like kids are a burden or anything. But yeah, do you feel like everybody can sort of get away and have those adult experiences while kids are enjoying the kid experiences?
My controversial opinion is that Disney Cruise Line, unless you're a big gambler because there's no casino, or you're a big drinker because the drinks are expensive, is the best cruise line for adults because they have the most adult-only areas. So there's like 7 on the. Well, I was last on the Disney Dream. There are 7 adult-only bars. There are 2 adult-only restaurants. If you don't want to see kids apart from in the atrium when Mickey and Minnie are there and the place is absolutely rammed, you don't have to. No, I'd say there's adult-only pools. You don't have to have that kiddie experience if you don't want to. And we don't travel with kids, so it works for us. But also people that do travel with kids, the kids clubs are incredible. You get this when you get on the ship, you can have a tour of everywhere on the ships. You can go to the spa and you can go to all these other places. You can go into the kids club as an adult. It's the only time you can get in there. And they have like a Millennium Falcon, and the kids there, and they can be flying the Millennium Falcon. Far too good for children, but that is such a great, and open until 1 o'clock. So if you're an adult, you can just let your kid, run wild. They're gonna have an amazing time, and you can chill out. They'll have live music in the adult-only areas. There's also, don't tell the kids, there's a secret adult-only buffet. Yeah, in the adult-only area. But yeah, there's that. Yeah, it is a great experience for adults as well as kids. And obviously, if you're the family, you want to do things all together, we can do that. There's lots of different entertainment. There's lots of Disney trivia. There's music quizzes. There's lots going on throughout the day.
And of course, on DCL, the experience is different on the different ships. Which ship was the one for your most recent trip?
My most recent trip was on the Disney Dream, which is about 12 years old now. So it's one of their sort of middle-aged ships, shall we say. And I also was on the Magic, which was the first ship way back in 1998. So yeah, as they've gone on, the Disney ships have got bigger. There's more entertainment. There's much more going on. We've actually been looking at a cruise on the Wish for next year. So maybe I'll be sneaking that in. So, but yeah, I do like to try different types of ships. So when you say about cruise lines, obviously, depending on the age and the size of the ship, your experience can be so different, even though you're sailing with the same cruise line.
So did you have any shows on your ship?
Yeah, we had, one was Beauty and the Beast, which is the same as pretty much a show you'd see on Broadway, West End. Absolutely phenomenal. And the second show we saw was Believe, which is basically a retelling of the story of Aladdin.
Awesome. That sounds amazing that you get to experience all of these different things. Is it still a vacation vibe, or do you find that if you want to experience all these things, you still have to keep a notebook and kind of make sure you're keeping a schedule? Or, do they do the shows enough times? Do you have enough of a chance to go to the buffet where you still feel like you're doing things on your own schedule and you're still able to rest?
You are. It's a lot more formal than, say, Norwegian Cruise Line is all about freedom dining. Everything is, you just turn up there, you'll get given a seat, unless you have your dinner. Disney have 2 fixed dining. You're either on early or late. If you're the early dining, you see the late show. And if you've got the late dining, you see the early show. The shows are between you get in there and get sat down until it finishes are going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. And that's pretty much the amount of time that dinner's going to take. So, and afterwards, obviously, then you're free to do as you choose.
And I do think that's kind of within Disney's, tradition, is a Disney vacation to the theme parks is a little more planning, a little more regimented than most other theme park vacations. So it would make sense that a Disney Cruise Line cruise would be a little more regimented. So when you're on something like a Norwegian cruise or a Princess cruise and you find that it is a little more lackadaisical, you're not quite as structured, how do you plan your days, or do you not plan your days? And do you just kind of, wake up when you feel like it and just wander around?
Most cruise lines have either an app or you get a daily planner, which we put in your cabin each day. That's going to be telling you what are the sort of the day's list of activities. So, and what we tend to do is to look around and say, which are the things that we really want to do on each day? If you want to do the show, then you're going to sort of work your dining or any other entertainment around that. Because remember, is that on some of these big ships, there can be 4 or 5 different entertainment events happening all at the same time. So you need to kind of remember also is that the ships are big. So if you're at one end of the ship and a show finishes at 8:30 and there's another one starting at 8:30, it's going to take you 15 minutes to walk there. So you have to think, well, do I really want to, how do I try and fit it all in? But it's a little bit like Disney. I always say to people that go the first time, you'll never do it all. And that's on a cruise ship as well. There's too much to do. You just can't do it all. You have to pick and choose.
And I want to talk a little bit about character interactions, because if somebody has been to both Walt Disney World and Disneyland, for example, the character interactions at those two theme parks are completely different. Whereas in Disneyland, the characters more meander. Maybe they're being a part of a story, where it's more of a conveyor belt, as I like to say, at Walt Disney World, where you get in line, you take your picture, the next person in line then comes in after you. What would you say is the vibe for the character interactions on a cruise?
Organized chaos. And Disney did really well. But what happened is that the main atrium, when the characters are out, especially sort of the Mickey, Minnie, and Pluto, those characters that everyone wants to see, what'll happen is that they will be all lined up all around sort of other parts of the ship, all waiting in there to get their photographs taken with the characters. And then you'll have like little pop-ups where, you'll just have like Daisy will just turn up, outside of some shops, and then suddenly she'll get mobbed. But they've got their handlers to try and sort of keep it all under control. I think one of the things on my last cruise is that I think most of the characters were Disney characters. There wasn't any sort of Star Wars, there wasn't any sort of Pixar or stuff like that. It was mainly the Disney characters. But I think that the ship's gone in now. There's going to be a bit of a refurb. I think the Kids Air refurb is going to bring a lot of Marvel characters in. So I'm going to assume there's going to be a lot more Marvel characters on board the ship.
Yeah, I know that when it comes to Disney Cruise Line, they have, Star Wars Days at Sea and Marvel Days at Sea, and they will actually have sailings that focus specifically on Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars. Now, even if you go on one of those cruises, you still usually get the basics, like at least the Fab Five of Mickey and Donald and Minnie and, Goofy. Like, you still usually get them, maybe even Chippendale, but you can also sometimes get things like Star Wars and Marvel. And then sometimes they do just focus kind of on that classic Disney. When it comes to things like the dining and the package itself, what comes with it? Is it just alcohol that is pay as you go, or are there some food options that are also pay as you go?
Basically, you're to pay for your drinks on Disney. They don't do drinks package, so you'll be paying individually. If you like a beer, they have a package in which Disney offer you a beer glass. The beer glass is 21 ounces. Beers are normally poured at 16. So every time you have a beer, you get 5 ounces free. So that's the first thing. The next thing to remember, if you like a drink and want to save some money, is that some of the bars will have throughout the day happy hour or a happy 2 hour, but you don't. If you go to that bar, you can then say, "I'd like to order 2 drinks, but can I have one now and I can have another one in half an hour's time?" But you buy both of them at the happy hour price. And on our cruise line, the happy hour price was half price, which basically meant that a 21-ounce beer was $4.75, which is pretty cheaper than what you're paying at the local bar.
And certainly it's about a third of what you would pay in the theme park, if not even less than that, exactly. Right? So the alcohol's an upcharge, but is most of the food included with your price?
All of the food is included with the price, except for the 2 specialty dining restaurants that will be extra. One's Palo, which is, Palo means boat in Italian. Yeah, and that's named after that. And there's Remy, which is named after a rat. I don't know why the most expensive restaurant is named after a rat. It's not something that I would have done, but that's for Disney. They are very, very expensive. The food's amazing, but they are very expensive what they are. And I'll be honest with you, the main dining room food on Disney is equal or better than the specialty dinings you'll get on practically every other cruise line I've been on.
So if you're looking to save a little bit of money, you're saying just stick to the regular dining on Disney Cruise Line because you're going to love that food anyway. And those other restaurants are so pricey that maybe that's just a good way to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, and one of the things that people do say is, "Oh, Disney Cruise Line, aren't they really expensive?" And the truth is, yeah, they are. Disney don't particularly advertise when they're having sales. But if you want to do a Disney cruise and you're flexible, if you check their website, they will have miraculous sales in which, so we got a guaranteed balcony cabin. That's what we ordered. In the end, when we got, so I don't know what my cabin is going to be. Disney chooses where I go. And we had the biggest cabin on the ship for basically a balcony. It was 300 square foot, which is as big as a mini suite on a princess ship. Now, we paid 68% of the rack rate for that room because I let Disney choose it for me. So, yeah, is it expensive? Yes, it's expensive. But also, when you say about include things, room service is included on Disney Cruise Line, which on most other cruise lines, they're going to charge you at least $10 for a turn up with that. You can get soft drinks out of the fountains. Yeah, a lot of other cruise lines, they'll make you have a soda package, which could be between $15 and $20 a day. All this stuff adds up. So when the initial cost might look expensive, but over the time, it's not. Disney also have things like laundrettes. Now, a lot of cruise lines don't, but that's quite a handy thing to have, especially if you've got kids who are, unfortunately, they're not well or whatever. You can basically clean your stuff. Yeah, whereas other cruise lines, they're going to say, fill a bag, but it's going to be $30. So all these other things, they just do add up.
I feel like as you're describing Disney Cruise Line compared to other cruise lines, it's the difference you used to get between the Disney parks and the other parks. But now the parks are starting to be a little bit more on that, pay as you go. Now we have paid skip the line pass. And now they're charging to park, for example, and some of those things. So it's almost like that Disney difference, that Disney customer service that used to be all aspects of Disney. It's still there at Disney Cruise Line from what you're saying, even if it's starting to disappear a little bit from some of the theme parks.
The thing for me, Disney Cruise Line, is that the level of service you get is unmatched. The thing is that your servers will be over to you and they'll see you the first time, you introduce yourself. When you go back in there, they're going to know your name. They say, "Oh, hello, welcome back, my family," and all this type of stuff. I know some people think it's a bit cheesy, but it's nice. I've been on Celebrity Cruise Line sort of 4 weeks ago, and it was very professional, but there's no warmth in their service. You are just you felt like you were a number, and that's on Celebrity, and Celebrity are an expensive cruise line, but they were professional, but it wasn't that I think the way that Disney train their staff is just unbelievable. You as you say, and I think that I was in Disneyland 2 years ago. It's the last time I've been in the parks, and I didn't notice too much of a change. But yeah, things like Lightning Lane and Genie Plus and all this type, it does feel a bit like, you're being sort of turned upside down, and they're shaking the money out your pockets, which I don't know, it doesn't really seem right to me.
And then just very quickly before we go, I want to talk about what you try to show people in your videos from these cruises. So maybe I'm thinking about taking a cruise. Maybe I'm like, do I want to spend the money on a DCL cruise? Or maybe do I want to do Norwegian? Like, what types of looks are you giving me on your channel so that I can make some of those decisions?
I think on my videos, what I like to try and show is my experience throughout the course of the day. So at the end of the day, I'm not particularly in my videos, because I want my viewers to see what I can see rather than them see me eating, because no one wants to be seeing that. So I'm there, I'll be going around, I want to show things like what's the food, especially in the buffet. People love to see the food in the buffet. The entertainment. Disney don't allow you to film their shows, and they are super, super strict about that. Basically they'll be on you like a hawk. So you won't find a lot of that footage online from anybody really. And also, say if you're into the trivia or whatever, I'm just trying to, as over the course of the day, I'll just be showing you what I get up to. But also, that's just what I'm doing. And that's the thing, isn't it? Is that on a video, you're just seeing a snapshot of somebody's day, on the ship. But there's so many more things to do. And I think that is something that, how I describe Disney Cruise Line is that if I go on another cruise line, I can come off and I'll say, well, I had a really great time, but. And there's always going to be this but. Whereas when I get off a Disney Cruise Line, there isn't, because I know that the experience I've had will always been top notch. And that's the Disney difference.
Steven from A Life in the Parks, I always have loved your content going back and seeing the theme parks back when I remember first going to them. Like, it always brings up so much nostalgia, so many great memories of how the parks used to be in the past. But now that you're also incorporating going on these cruises and bringing that into, the modern day, you continue to have great content. So I always like having you on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Many thanks, Rick. Many thanks for having me on again, as always.
This has been episode 194 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. In 2 weeks, I'll be joined by my co-host and good friend, Sarah Says, for a special Halloween episode of the podcast. And next Thursday, I'll be continuing my series on former Disney chairman and CEO, Michael Eisner. In September, I focused on Eisner's pre-Disney life and compared his journey to that of Walt Disney himself. Next Thursday, we'll look at one of the people who made Eisner's early success at Disney possible. Until then, have a great week.